Golf is a total mess right now, and Phil Mickelson is the guy who blew it wide open. He walked into the most locked-down room in the sport, looked Brian Rolapp dead in the eye, and tore the CEO's new rule change apart. With no script and nobody feeding him lines, he just said the one thing every player has been holding in for 2 years. The suits froze. Guys who spent 4 straight years hating each other stood up side by side, all pulling the same way for the first time anyone can remember. And Rolapp, the boss who walked in thinking he owned the place, watched his big plan fall apart right in front of him. Mickelson, the outcast, the bad guy, the man they swore would never get let back in, just pulled the biggest names in golf onto one team against the man in charge. So, what did he say up there? How badly did Rolapp fumble the comeback? Where does this leave a tour that already looked one bad week from falling apart? Stick around, because this one is massive, and we're breaking down every piece right now. Hit subscribe before we get going, because the next chapter is going to be wild. Let me set the scene first, because you need to feel the mood in that room. This meeting was sold as a peace talk. Leadership and players sitting down like grown-ups to clean up the mess the PGA Tour has become. Sounds nice on paper, right? Real life had other plans. Golf at the top is basically a bomb waiting to go off, and Rolapp keeps walking around lighting matches next to it. Rory McIlroy got things rolling a few days before. 6 majors, the loyal guy who stayed put while everyone else jetted off to Saudi Arabia. Even he finally lost it. Rory gave leadership a flat 24-hour deadline. Scrap the 2-track system, fix the broken FedEx Cup playoffs, and give players real say in the big calls. Not a fake seat at the table, actual power. Rolapp's answer, the same boardroom word salad as always. 47 events, 230 players, more competitive, more compelling, blah, blah, blah. The man talks like a press release while the roof falls in on him. Then the 3M Open blew up. 11 players sat it out over a surprise rule change that veteran Jim Furyk, a guy who's been on tour for decades, admitted he didn't even know existed. Read that again. A rule so hidden that the players who were supposed to follow it had no idea it was even written down. Want to hear the funny part? Word is, the whole blow-up started over something as small as rolling a couple of practice putts on the green you just finished. Seriously. Slow play is killing this sport, but sure, let's pick that tiny thing to fight over. Ryan Fox walked, Jordan Spieth bailed, Eric Cole and a handful of other big names joined them at the door. Grown men at the top of their game basically told a huge event to get lost, and the higher-ups looked shocked that anybody cared. Everybody who showed up to that meeting already smelled the smoke. So Rolapp struts in dead sure he runs the whole show. His plan, his schedule, that shiny little 2028 dream. He's the boss, and the players were supposed to nod along like they always do. Then Phil Mickelson stood up. Get this straight. Just having Lefty in that room was a huge deal. Here's a guy who got kicked out. He burned every bridge so bad that people swore he'd never get near the place again. Off to live he went, saying stuff about tour bosses that had lawyers scrambling. Villain of the whole story. That warning tale they tell young players about biting the hand that feeds you. Yet there he was, back inside. Not begging for a favor either, but sitting in that chair as the most dangerous man in the room. Why dangerous? Because Phil didn't come back with nothing. He came back with proof. 2 whole years he spent on the outside, watching exactly how live works, catching every mistake the tour kept making, seeing the full picture from a spot nobody else has ever stood in. When he leaned into that mic, everybody in the room felt the floor tilt. Smart move. He didn't come out swinging. That's what made it scary. Soft, calm, a little bit of remember the good old days. That's how he opened. Talked about his own climb, what the tour meant to a broke kid with a dream the old events fans drove across the country to see. Warm stuff. Rolapp nodded along. A few suits even smiled, getting ready for a feel-good comeback speech from the guy who supposedly changed. Poor them. They had no clue. Then the switch flipped, and when Lefty flips it, you feel it in your chest. Staring right at the leadership table, not the cameras, not the players, the leadership table, he said the thing nobody dares say, out loud. Restructuring. Nope. "This is a tear down," he told them. Slapping a second tier label on tournaments older than half the suits in the room isn't cleaning things up. It's a slap in the face to golf's history. Players grind for years, wreck their bodies, give up time with family, all of that, only to get handed a system built without one single guy ever getting asked what he thought. Right then, he turned to the USGA, and the whole mood cracked open. He brought up the 3M Open and asked the room straight up how a rulemaking body writes rules the players don't even know about. Wondered out loud how a tour can stand in front of cameras saying it speaks for players while locking them out of every real decision. Pushed on how 11 pros, top guys in the sport, felt so ignored that skipping a whole event was the only way left to be heard. Put yourself in a player's shoes for a second. You spend your whole life getting good at something. You sign up to play by a set of rules, and then you find out a brand new rule got slipped in overnight that nobody told you about. Trust goes out the window fast when that happens. Respect walks right out behind it. You could have heard a pin drop. Nobody coughed. Half the suits suddenly got real interested in their own shoes. Boom. Then Lefty dropped the line. The one that's going to get clipped and shared for years. Listen close, because it matters. Players aren't workers asking for a raise. They are the product. Take them out, and the whole thing falls apart. No tour, no TV deals worth signing, sponsors gone, seats empty, and not one suit in that room with a reason left to collect a paycheck. Time's up. Way past time, honestly, for the people running this sport to treat the guys who are it like it. Then the room blew up. Guys who'd been sitting there with arms crossed and jaws tight, up on their feet in a flash. Players who'd argued with Mickelson about everything for 4 rough years, clapping like crazy. Young guys who only know Lefty from old highlights and locker room stories, kids who weren't even on tour during the LIV fights, standing up too. That wasn't a polite golf clap. Years of bottled-up anger finally found a way out. Rolapp, meanwhile, looked like a man whose floor just vanished under his feet. He stood there frozen, holding notes that suddenly felt about as handy as a snapped putter in a sand trap. Everyone could see the same thought hit his face. This room wasn't his anymore. Maybe for good. Now, here's the part Rolapp never planned for. Phil isn't just a bitter rebel with a grudge anymore. He's turned into something way scarier. A rebel who came back with real credibility, left the tour, saw the other side, chose to walk back in anyway. When a guy walks away from everything, lives without it, and still comes back to tell you the house is falling down, you can't just wave him off. Calling him someone who doesn't get the big picture doesn't fly, because he saw the picture from outside the building. The stuff leaking out of that meeting is wild. One veteran, who asked to stay unnamed, said it was the first time in ages somebody told the truth without stopping to count the cost to himself. Nobody worrying about board seats or hurt egos or which friendships might get weird next week. Just plain, honest truth. Another player said it felt like someone finally turned the lights on in a room where everyone had been bumping around in the dark for years. These aren't nobodies, by the way. Seasoned pros who know the difference between a real moment and one that's forgotten by Monday are telling you flat out that this one is real. Rolapp's response, careful, measured, beyond annoying. Right back to the same old script he went. 47 events, 230 players. More competitive, more compelling. Same recycled lines, except this time they landed like a wet towel on a cold floor. Phil had already flipped the whole conversation, so those rehearsed answers made him look exactly like what he is. A guy reading a script while smoke pours under the door. Guess who's loving every second of this circus? The LIV guys. Every crack in the tour's foundation is a free ad for the Saudi League. A leaked complaint, an ultimatum, a public fight. All of it screams, come on over. We actually respect you. Those 47 players who already left are watching this dumpster fire with popcorn. Fence sitters are quietly taking notes. Greg Norman doesn't even need a recruiting team. The tour is doing his pitch for free. How it looks matters, and this looked awful. A brand new CEO, barely in the chair, out-argued in public by the exact guy his bosses spent years trying to erase. Talk about a rough first impression. Somewhere a PR team is pulling an all-nighter, and they've earned it. Fixing trust after a scene like that isn't a quick memo or a friendly podcast chat. Years? That's the real timeline if the goodwill even lasts long enough to fix. Here's what Phil actually broke past all the fireworks, and this is the part that counts, so stay with me. Rolapp's whole game plan has been split them up and beat them one by one. Keep the players apart. Deal with each one alone. Make McIlroy look like a lone hothead. Paint the boycotting guys as troublemakers. Frame Mickelson as a bitter exile with a personal grudge. That plan only works as long as the players never find one shared voice. Lefty just handed them that voice, loud, public, in front of everybody in the building. Think about what really went down. You've now got Mickelson and McIlroy, two men who've been on opposite sides of nearly every golf fight for 4 rough years, pointing at the same target. That's not a grumpy little group anymore. That's a real team with teeth. When a team like that forms around a CEO who spent months brushing people off, that CEO's easy ride is over. Look at the math stacked against leadership now. Sponsor deals, TV talks, board politics. The whole model quietly counts on a locker room too split to push back together. Take that away and the power flips overnight. Networks care about ratings. Sponsors run from ugly headlines. Nobody with a budget wants to pay for a product whose biggest stars keep saying on the record that they feel used. Quiet control disappears the second the room starts yelling back. Here's something else nobody's talking about. This wasn't some heat-of-the-moment blow-up. Phil walked in with a plan. He built that speech like a lawyer builds a case. First, he opened with the good old days to lower everyone's guard. Next came the hard facts. The 2-track mess, the USGA screw-ups, the boycott. Proof that he knew his stuff. He finished with the big hammer nobody could argue with. You're nothing without the players. One speech and Rolapp's whole story folded like a cheap card table. Hard truth coming because everyone in this sport needs to hear it. You can't build a TV product, a sponsor product, a fan product on top of people who feel disrespected and powerless. That has never once worked in sports history. Skip that lesson, and the tour learns it the loud, public, embarrassing way. Real listening is the only way out, not the fake kind where you set up a meeting and then do whatever you already planned. Mickelson gets this better than just about anyone alive, since he paid for his own mistakes in front of the world. Whatever he carried back into that room, a gut feeling for what this game is supposed to be, was easily the most powerful thing in the building, and Rolapp had absolutely nothing to say back. Honestly, I don't know what comes out of this meeting. Maybe the 2-track system gets torn up. Perhaps Rory's deadline finally gets a real answer. It could be that Phil's speech becomes the moment people point to 10 years from now, or it just fades into another loud flare-up in a sport that keeps making them and then doing nothing. One thing feels sure, though. Something shifted today. Players found a voice, a fearless one. The boardroom can't just swat away the way it's swatted everything else. Golf is standing at a crossroads unlike anything it's ever faced. LIV wrecked the money side. Trust in the USGA leaks out with every clumsy rule out of nowhere. War is on between the tour and its own biggest stars. Fans, the real ones who show up in the rain and stay till the last putt drops, are watching all of it half furious and half unable to look away. Today, Mickelson walked into the fire on purpose and reminded everyone what this sport is supposed to stand for. Whether the folks holding the power actually listen, that one question decides the next 10 years of golf. All right, your turn. Does Phil's speech really change things? Or is this just more fireworks the tour quietly ignores by next Tuesday? Drop your take below and give me one word if you can. I read every single comment. If you're somehow still not subscribed, come on, what are we doing here? Tap that button, smack the bell so you never miss a thing, and send this to one golf buddy who needs to see it. Because this story is nowhere near over. And the next twist is already being written. Until then, keep both eyes on this circus. Catch you in the next one.